As you remember, at the beginning of this summer, amid the Russian army's numerous battlefield successes, I told you not to rejoice ahead of time. Back then, I made it clear to you that the Russian army's numerous battlefield successes are not a sign of the early onset of the long-awaited peace in Ukraine, but an omen that the NATO countries, led by the United States, would take the road to let the conflict escalate. And, as time has shown, I was right again. Seeing the destruction of the Ukrainian army and the imminent surrender of the Kiev regime, the so-called leaders of Western countries began to threaten Moscow that they would allow the Ukrainians to use Western long-range missiles against targets located deep into Russian territory. Against this backdrop, in September of this year, Russian President Vladimir Putin officially stated that if the Ukrainian army begins to strike with Western long-range missiles against targets inside of Russia's borders, Moscow will perceive this fact as the entry of NATO countries into the war against Russia. Vladimir Putin explained his words by the fact that Ukrainian officers and soldiers are unable to use Western high-tech weapons. According to him, it is NATO officers and soldiers who will enter flight data into Western long-range missiles and aim them at the targets with the help of American and European military satellites. Taking all this into account, the Russian leader stressed that Moscow reserves the right to deliver a crushing blow to NATO military targets not only on the territory of Ukraine, but also outside this Eastern European country. And now, almost 3 months after Putin's statement, the outgoing Biden administration, realizing its impotence and defeat in the confrontation with Russia, seems to have decided to escalate the conflict and bring mankind to the brink of a global war. If we are to believe statements made by numerous Western publications, in addition to the United States, France, and Britain also allowed Ukraine to use Western long-range missiles against targets located deep into Russian territory. By the way, the American newspaper The Washington Post, citing its own sources in the White House, stated that Biden allowed Kiev to use American ATACMS ballistic missiles only against the territory of the Kursk region, where Moscow allegedly deployed troops from North Korea. At the same time, even the experts of this American newspaper admit that the Ukrainian army will not limit itself to launching missile strikes on the Kursk region alone. Amid such statements from the West, authoritative Russian military analyst Alexander Dmitrievsky said that the decision of the NATO countries to allow Kiev to use Western long-range missiles against targets located deep into Russian territory would mean the declaration of war by the North Atlantic Alliance on Moscow. According to him, Putin was not joking when he said that Moscow would respond harshly if Western long-range missiles flew toward Russia. Citing his own sources in the Russian military department, Alexander Dmitrievsky said that Russian missile forces were already preparing to deliver a crushing blow to NATO military facilities in countries such as Poland and Romania. According to him, if ATACMS ballistic missiles and Storm Shadow cruise missiles fly toward Russia, Moscow will launch a missile attack on NATO military facilities in such Polish settlements as Redzikowo and Brzezo, where American and Polish soldiers are stationed. In addition, Russian hypersonic and ballistic missiles will also rain down on the Mikhail Kogalnicu International Airport in Romania. At the same time, this military analyst noted that this would be only the beginning of the Russian response. Over time, the geography of missile strikes will only grow. Moreover, on November 18, insiders in the Kremlin said that if Kiev starts using Western long-range missiles against targets located deep into Russian territory, then the United States, France, and Britain, in their own skin will feel that Vladimir Putin's warnings are not empty words. The chief of the Russian General Staff, Army General Valery Gerasimov, also added oil to the fire. In particular, a few hours ago, he officially announced that Russia had put 95% of the launchers of the ground-based strategic forces on full alert. This means that the deadliest Russian missiles are ready to launch at any minute, as soon as the appropriate order is received from the Supreme Commander. And judging by what is happening in the West right now, General Gerasimov's words were taken very seriously by Western warmongers. In particular, French Foreign Minister Jean-Noël Barrot officially stated that France did not authorize the use of French Scalp cruise missiles against Russian territory by Ukrainian army. I officially declare that French President Emmanuel Macron has not yet issued a permit to Vladimir Zelensky to use French missiles against targets located deep into Russian territory, French Foreign Minister Jean-Noël Barrot said. Moreover, a few minutes after this statement by a French minister, the authoritative French newspaper, Le Figaro, deleted an article where it was said that France and Britain allegedly allowed Ukraine to strike Russia with Western cruise missiles. Thus, as you can see, very contradictory information is being received on this topic, and it becomes difficult for ordinary people to understand what is true and what is false. However, if you ask me, I would say that even if Kiev strikes at Russian territory with the help of the American ballistic missile ATACMS, or the Franco-British cruise missile Storm Shadow, Putin will most likely react calmly to this. The fact is that Vladimir Putin is a very cunning, calm, and calculating person. Vladimir Putin is well aware that in 9 weeks Donald Trump will come to power in the United States, who is not so kind and favorable to the head of the Kiev regime Vladimir Zelensky. Moreover, Vladimir Putin also understands perfectly well that the Russian army is winning on the battlefield, and therefore, it is not profitable for Moscow to succumb to provocations and escalate the conflict, especially given the fact that the complete destruction of Ukrainian troops and the surrender of the Kiev regime are just around the corner. Thus, it is safe to say that regardless of how the subsequent events will develop, Russia's victory in this conflict is already an indisputable fact.